All right, yesterday I did top 5, absolutely have to be's on the College Football Hall of Fame ballot. Today I just wanted 5 other people should consider.
Well, then it's not a top 5. It's a top 10.
Well, there's more than 10 people on your ballot, correct?
Yeah, how many did I say yesterday?
I think there's
mentioned
12. Yeah, so there we go. I'm going to do a top 2 tomorrow, and we can shut up about it. So, but no, these are 5 other I would like to see the voters consider.
Okay, but hold on. Who did you do yesterday? Warwick Dunn.
Yesterday was Tebow, Reggie Bush, Warwick Dunn, Ray Lewis, and Michael Bishop.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so today these are 5 other names for people to consider. Number 5, Errict Rhett, running back from Florida. He was kind of the player, I think, that put the Spurrier teams, or one of them, that put the Spurrier teams on the map. 4,000 yards rushing. He was the first college running back to rush for 4,000 yards and have over 140 receptions. Really a fantastic player in those Gator teams. And kind of forgotten because, again, his NFL career was kind of nondescript. He played, but it wasn't there. But somebody that people should consider because, again, this is not about your NFL career. It's about your college career, and people should remember
and that's always been my biggest complaint about the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. When we discuss people, don't even, again, if they had a great college career, should have no impact at all. Same thing with this. The College Football Hall of Fame should not mean whatever you did in the NFL, even if you played it down in the NFL. And many of the great players did not.
Yeah, I always thought he had a cool name. That's actually what I first remembered about him. And, he was with the Buccaneers. I didn't watch him much at Florida. I don't know if it was I probably did, and I just don't recall it. I remember him as more of an NFL guy than I do as a Florida guy. So I'd have to go look back at, his career. I just don't remember it very well.
He's all SEC.
That's all good. I just don't remember his particular career at Florida, all of that well. So I'd have to be somebody before voting that goes back. But I did love him as an NFL guy. Obviously, his ode to the frat whenever he'd score with the hooks that he would do was cool. Yeah, exactly. I was a fan of his. I just don't remember enough about watching him specifically at Florida to be able to say yes or no, I'd vote him in.
Yeah, you know what? One of the other things I didn't bring up to you guys yesterday, to be a part of the ballot, you had to be you had to be an All-American. So there's some
that
guys,
makes sense.
that was something that you wonder, okay, why not? You had to be an All-American. Now think about that. If you're playing quarterback, you're up against it, right? So there's probably some guys that you could otherwise say, but there's some selection process. I'll go over that in a second. But okay, Errict Rhett. Right.
Yeah, number 4, Jeremy Maclin. This is a name. Mizzou, just 2 years, but an all-purpose yardage machine. Receiving, kick, and punt returns. And he ran the ball. Jeremy Maclin was an electric player, and a guy I think that may not get in this time around or maybe the next one, but somebody they've got to consider because he was an all-purpose yardage machine. Whenever he got the ball, he got yards. I think he had like 4 or 5 kick return touchdowns in his career. So
yeah, he was absolutely a weapon, a multi-weapon. I always wondered. I remember him, and he was fantastic. But I wonder if they utilized him much as like the jet sweep type stuff. I don't remember whether they did that or not.
Yeah, he was
everything.
Yeah.
He's put the ball in his hands. That's what he was.
Possible.
I remember he was an Oklahoma commit at one point in time and then flipped to Mizzou. I don't remember if it was late or not, but you just imagine like they were flying high back then. But it goes to show you how relevant Mizzou was at the time. Mm-hmm. It's been a little while since they were that relevant, but yeah, he was nasty. We just didn't get to see him for very long, like you said. But no, he was fantastic. I don't know if I think a college football Hall of Famer with him, just because. I put that in very elite territory, so he probably is. But to me, I'd have to think about it a little bit.
And that's why I kind of pulled some of these names out, because you do have to think about it, and that's to consider. But
great player though.
And when I was looking at the ballot, I listened. You know what? Let me look at Jeremy Maclin, and really, his 2 years plus he was. Part of that being
5
everything
returns for touchdowns.
Yeah, 5 returns. Yeah,
22 receiving touchdowns. He was twice a consensus All-American in his 2 years.
He's very good.
That's very impressive.
Yeah. Number 3, and the only one on the defensive side of the ball, I'm sorry, on this top 5, Antonio Langham, who was just a bad dude in the secondary at Alabama. really their best defensive back. And I believe he and George Teague overlapped there. 92 national championship. Antonio Langham was a really fantastic college player. And when I think of those Alabama teams that Gene Stallings had, Antonio Langham's one of the names I think of. I mean, absolutely. And he was, I know he was All-American a couple times. I mean, 4 years he was All-Conference. He started for 4 years and played for 4 years. So, yeah, I think Antonio Langham, I was kind of surprised when the name popped up that he wasn't in yet. Just because he's one of the guys who played and you knew, 3-4 years of stats out there for him.
I'm going to send you my ballot next year. Because those I don't know if they would have been a part of, like, the next 5, but boy, the Maclin thing, I probably was an overshadowed.
I mean, there's so many names on the ballot.
That's the thing is college football. Like, there's a billion guys that you have to sort through. I'm still trying to figure out, how did Jeremy Maclin go pro after 2 years? Was he just old enough?
It was a red shirt.
There was a red. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Or maybe like an injury his freshman year. But yeah, so
he was actually a red shirt because he was at Missouri 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah.
He was freshman of the year in the Big 12 and 7, twice consensus All-American in 7 and 8, so he redshirted his freshman year.
I don't remember.
Remember when you could redshirt guys like that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I mean, it's just like you don't even think about that now. But yes, on Langham, I think you made a great case for him.
Yeah. Number 2, a name who is on the '85 Bears. People remember him, and the Raiders.
And Willie.
But Wille Gault. That's my fault. It's copy and paste.
Okay.
We got to do that. Yeah. But Wille Gault, who is at Tennessee, the only player to ever have 3 kickoff return touchdowns in a season, was Olympic caliber sprinter, just another in an era where total yards was not really as much of a thing because they ran the ball a lot more at Tennessee in the SEC then. But
they always had great receivers.
They always had Wille Gault was one of the best kick returners of all time.
He was on the 85 Bears.
I think you've got to absolutely think about Wille Gault too.
Yeah, Wille Gault was, some of these sprinters sometimes, like that kid Allen, who's now picked by Philadelphia, that won the 200 meters or whatever it was, or hurdles. Man, he from the
Olympic
3-2-1, a gold star for Paul remembering Wille Gault. You sometimes let Ronaldo Nehemiah and others that have been sprinters, but sometimes weren't quite great football players, but Wille Gault was a hell of a football player.
Yeah. And number 1, and this guy I know is on your ballot, Smokey, but people need to know it. He's not just the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys. He's the all-time winningest quarterback in the history of college football. Nobody's won more games than Kellen Moore has, and that has to mean something. There are 3 guys on this list that kind of fall into the category of, were they the best player on their really great teams? No, but they were the quarterbacks, and they were pretty good. He's on the ballot. Ken Dorsey is on the ballot, and Josh Heupel's on the ballot, and all 3 of these guys are very high-level coaches now, one regard to the other. Ken Dorsey and Kellen Moore will probably be NFL coaches next year, and Josh Heupel, as we know, head coach at Tennessee, and a guy who's on the rise.
Heupel led him to the national title.
Yeah. So all 3 of those guys have a case to get in. Now, you could make the argument, and I don't know about Kellen Moore and Boise State because I don't know those teams as much, but they had a lot of NFL players. But Ken Dorsey and Josh Heupel were maybe the worst players on their team. I'm not trying to knock them, or the least athletic players on their team, and still were great players in college.
And Heupel came out of a junior college and just lit it up in 2000.
Kellen Moore was 50-3 over 4 years. So, it didn't really matter who's around him. He obviously had a little something to him. You go that record as a quarterback, it's incredibly impressive, 50-3. But I mean, just numbers wise and impact wise, he's certainly a very worthy candidate. I wouldn't think of him probably in the top 100 players of, if you made me sit down with a blank sheet of paper and go, who do you think's missing from the? It'd be a long time before I thought of Kellen Moore, but then you mentioned him, it's like, obviously. I mean, look at the numbers. Yep.
2 things that do come out, and this is a part of the process because there's but has to be a first-team All-American by a selector organization that's recognized by the NCAA and utilized to comprise the consensus All-American teams, and a player becomes eligible for consideration 10 years after his final year of intercollegiate football. There's a couple of other things as well for being nominated or at least on the ballot. All right, Paul, thank you. Great stuff in the top 5. Craig Smoak, thank you. Garrett Ross, as always.